Hey guys, it's M. Monstrum 2. Okay, so fun fact about this video in particular, I wrote out an entire script and already edited a video for this, but due to a DaVinci Resolve update that hardly worked on my computer, the entire video got wiped and I can't seem to find the old assets, so here we are talking about it again. Anyways, let's actually talk about the game in the title. Monstrum 2 is a sequel to, well, Monstrum, a very popular horror indie game that came out a good few years ago. I'd be shocked if you hadn't at least passively heard about it a while ago, since a lot of big YouTubers were playing it. Especially if you're here watching a video on it from me, who's also already made a video on it. For something as relevant as it was, you'd think the sequel dropping would be the series' second win, as a lot of YouTubers would probably want to jump back into the series because either A, it's a series they liked before, or B, realistically a series that brought them a lot of views. And it seems initially people were really interested in this game as you look at the views for the trailer, and especially factoring in the fact that this isn't a super huge game. But if you look at Monstrum 2 now, most of the relevant videos about it were made a good while ago. Finding videos about the game at this very moment is pretty much impossible. It seems like it's pretty much dead, even after the devs seem to keep updating it and patching it. Why is that? Well, I honestly think it breaks down into a few key factors that I have prepared here. The first point, this game should not have been called Monstrum 2. Monstrum 1 was a horror game set up in the corridors of a big ship named the Hisamaru. You seem to be the sole survivor of whatever happened on the ship, and your goal is to get off of it by any means necessary, with one of 3 monsters tailing after you. The main things I'd say it's known for is the claustrophobic nature of the ship, the RNG helping randomize every game, the monsters that encapsulate different fears, and the overall unique experience it was. Even now, I can't think of any game exactly like it. Now, Monstrum 2 is an asymmetrical Dead by Daylight type game. If you know what Dead by Daylight is or functionally plays like, you'll understand why this is a problem. It's in a completely different genre that doesn't facilitate or use any of the first game's strengths to its advantage. I'm not saying this in itself is a bad thing, but I'm saying when you make a numbered sequel, people will tend to expect more of the same kind of thing the first game established. Other than the fact that you're on a boat and need to escape creatures, there's pretty much no other overlap between these two titles. I can guarantee you this game would have done much better if they literally labeled it anything else. They could have kept Monstrum in the name, but it needed a subtitle, not a number. My second point is the weaknesses in game design really show here. What I mean by this is Monstrum 1 in itself wasn't necessarily a technical marvel. Hell, I think the game is barely 2 gigabytes. If you actually look at the game, it's not that visually impressive, but since they played into their strengths in the first game, you wouldn't really notice how lackluster some of the things are. All of the animations are pretty janky looking. The monsters are pretty stupid to the point where you can throw glow sticks at the things and they don't even react. You can leave cabinets open and hide in them and they won't see you. It's a very flawed game, but most of these are things you wouldn't notice unless you look way deeper than normal people would. Monstrum 2's visual issues are a lot more apparent. The first person animations are a bit off. The humans in general look odd. They kind of look like blow-up dolls sometimes. And as for the monsters, they did get a significantly better bargain than the other assets, probably just because they're the main selling point of this game. But even then, some of them have odd things to them. Their death animations in general are very odd. Some of them sort of snap you into position. See that little dark speck? And others, like locker animations, have the flaw of the monster always needing to walk back in front of the locker afterwards to reposition the player. These are some of the best animations in game, but the awkward shuffle back to the door to close it after they kill someone kind of kills the momentum the animations tend to have. With Monstrum 1, you're usually too busy being scared to notice these sort of things. With Monstrum 2, it's almost apparent right out of the box, because the things that hid these issues aren't present in this game. What I will say is it seems better than when I initially wrote the first draft of this video a few months ago, because back then, even the monster textures didn't particularly look great, but even now, the overall problem of animations and models doesn't seem completely fixed for all sides. My third point is they got rid of most of the main cast. Somewhat on the point of not playing into what they had, the only returning monster was Brute. The other 2 seem to have been sent to the Shadow Realm and got replaced by 2 new creatures. I don't particularly have anything against them adding new creatures into the roster, but they lack the icon power the other 2 had. Sure, the Brute was obviously the main star of the show as he was on the box, but after all of these years of Monstrum 1, I'm pretty sure many fans would have liked to see the other 2 return. I know at least I did. The oddest part is, though, I feel like they have interesting powers that would tie into this game. Hunter, I feel, doesn't even need to be explained. Demogorgon from Dead by Daylight pretty much has the exact kit I imagined the Hunter would. but instead of using the upside down to teleport, he'd use the egg sacs he teleported with in the first game, or maybe even just use the vents to move up and down the ship. I doubt he'd need a lunge, but maybe give him some sort of cloaking ability to mimic the fact that he's translucent, and in the first game, it's kind of hard to see him sometimes. I imagine he'd be more of a technical monster, but again, as I just established, the acid's form are pretty much shown to have worked in Dead by Daylight. Fiend is much more complicated to put into this game due to most of what he did in the first game was based in fear and him scaring you out of doing things. Something that doesn't really translate well into asymmetrical games like this. The main thing he would have that could transfer is his stunning look. Sure, you need to find some way to balance it, but I could see it working something like Clown's bottles in Dead by Daylight. Maybe make it look like some spirit projectile and the survivors have to dodge it. And for a transferal ability, let him float up and down the vine spots faster than the other monsters do. Or let him straight go up and down floors if the area is open enough. Now that I've suggested both of these ideas, that's probably actually a good way to implement him into this game. And my fourth and final point is, I don't understand why they even decided to go with asymmetrical horror. I'm sure some of you are sick of me bringing up the game, but again, Dead by Daylight is the only game in this style that's worked. Literally every other competitor it's had in this space has fallen off. It appears to be a very hard space to establish yourself in unless you have something really unique. The king of the genre is literally the only known game in it. So the only way to keep any other game like it around is to be able to compete with it, since you're fighting for mostly the same audience. Monstrum 2 doesn't seem to have everything figured out to the point where it's even valid competition. Polish, the animation, the models, the gameplay, they don't seem to compare in any of these aspects. If you're a small indie group and you have your audience propping up your game for you, it's fine to not be the biggest game in the world, but due to the drastic shift in genre I mentioned earlier, because a lot of people won't even stick around to prop this game up because they didn't like how different it was and didn't even bother trying it. Overall, I don't think Monstrum 2 is a horrible gutter trash game. I think a lot of aspects of it were just handled wrong. And at the point the game is in now, even though the devs still updated, I don't see this ever getting a rebound that sweeps the nation. I think Studio Junkfish was simply out of their depth with this one, and it's kind of falling apart on them. Hell, in the last update they've done at the time of writing this, they added the old shit back from the first game. If any time would have brought life back into this game, it would have been now. But it seems like most people didn't even know the update came out, or B, forgot that the game exists as a whole by this point. I don't mean to sound like a downer on the entire situation, telling the independents to kill its project. It's just, unless they start shilling for big YouTubers to play it and it brings in enough people to make the game sustainable, it doesn't seem to make sense to pour more effort into this. As of now, it's hard to even find games due to how vacant the servers are, which is a real shame. But anyways, I just wanted to bring up this whole situation due to how much I actually like the original game. What do you guys think? As always, I'm glad to discuss with you in the comments, and I've been Evan, and I am